We are live.
We're on. Okay. Well, friends, if you're joining us for this live stream this morning, or if you're joining later because you're watching, then welcome along. We'll just give a couple of minutes while people come in. It's just 10 o'clock now, yeah, thanks for joining in. You can see there's the chat line is open, so if you want to say hi, so we know that you're there, you can do that. Yeah, we'll just wait a couple of moments before you hook in, which is good.
Actually, can we ask, guys? Can you say hi? Can you just let us know who's here? It'd be really helpful to know.
And can you hear us?
We had 5 a minute ago. Now we've only got. Hi, Debbie.
Right.
We had 5 a minute ago. 7 minutes ago. Now we're down to 5. So people have left already.
Scaring you off. It's good. Yep.
Great.
Fantastic. That's great.
Thanks, Debbie.
All right. Fantastic. All righty. Well, I'm Marcus, and this is Phil, and you've tuned in to a bit of a session as we think about how we raise godly and financially literate children. I'm here with my mate Phil. Phil, tell us a bit about yourself. So, because some people won't know you at all. What's the story?
Okay, I'm Phil, married to the beautiful Leanne, and we have 3 children, now young adults. So Hannah, who got married last year, and she's 23. We've got Holly, who's 21, studying vet science at Wagga, and Lockie, who's an apprentice mechanic. He is 19 years old and currently at the hospital getting his finger checked out because I think he broke his finger yesterday at work. But anyway, so that's me. I was for many, many years a financial advisor, but very passionate about teaching kids about money and how to manage it in a very efficient way. I'll talk more. I mean, I don't know how much you want to talk about, but like finance is something that's been of interest to me since my grandma taught me to budget when I was 18 years old, using physical glass jars and physical money in the UK. So I've been teaching people to budget for over 34 years, budget, manage your money. And that got me into financial advising 25 years ago. And then, now I'm financial coaching, but I'll talk more about that later.
You will. And where do you fit in the Crossroads picture? Where are you involved?
Oh, well, we're at Ginninderra, so Lake Ginninderra, in the morning congregation there, and our kids go to the evening congregation down at ANU. So yeah, absolutely loving it. We've only been here at Crossroads probably for 2.5 years now. We were previously at another church, but very excited to be part of the Crossroads church now.
Yep. Cool. Very excited to have you. Fantastic. And we've never quite done anything like this. So Phil and I catch up, and we've talked a lot about these issues. So this is going to be lots of fun. So Phil's got a presentation. He's going to share, but write questions, and we can pause, and we've got time to answer things along the way. Let me ask a bit of a question. This series we've been doing on gospel generosity.
Yep.
Really, we're pushing uphill in a sense against a culture that is given to materialism and the acquisition of more material things. How hard is it even for our kids? Is it more of a struggle for them? How do we? Wow, what a world they're growing up in. What do you see that's different, perhaps from our age compared to this current crop of kids? And I mean kids, from 2 to 18 sort of thing. What are some of the differences, do you think?
It is so much harder for our kids simply because of the online world. We're so, the whole social media, the whole online world, obviously advertising is getting more pointed, and it doesn't matter where our kids turn or where we turn these days, something's being pushed or plugged, or a lifestyle is being highlighted that is, the ideal lifestyle. So it's so much harder for our kids. And it's not just that in terms of, that from a materialism perspective, but also just managing money is so much harder these days because there's so many different ways to spend money. And it just seems so much harder to manage it in an online world. You would think it would be easier, but it's actually not. So it's a real challenge for our kids. And I think too that as our, progressive generations up until now, interesting, it's just changed, have been wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. So what our kids see now. I mean, the problem is our kids come into our world and they don't see the 20 years of struggle that took us to get to the point where we had enough money to buy a house, and then we bought the house, maybe we've upgraded the house, and when they start to become aware of when they're actually got a real consciousness of stuff, they're actually only seeing us after many, many years, and they think that that's the benchmark. That's what I should have, not, well, actually, no, I need to work my way up to that. Yep. So it is very, very hard for them.
Supplementary question. We grew up with this thing called cash as well. There was something that was tangible that we, so pocket money or giving at church, it was something that was physical and real. Yeah. Now it's like you mentioned, so there's some money in the account, kids. Like it's just What does that do? You reckon to our thinking about?
It's really hard because and I'll talk about this a little bit later on. But what that actually does is it divorces the money from the work that it goes to create that. Yeah. And so when you're just tapping and tapping and tapping, especially with our kids, a number of times, like I do some financial coaching with a couple of young adults with Down syndrome. And it was funny. I was sitting down with one of them the other day, Max, and we were talking about they like going to Broadburgers and going to Broadburgers. And I said, oh, well, but who pays? Like if you run out of money, who pays it? Oh, Dad just puts it on his card, and it was just as if the magic card, we wave the magic card and that will give us the money that we need. And I think it's so important as parents that we actually take the time to connect the dots. And again, I talk about this, connect the dots between physical money and the work it takes to create that physical money, and then what actually happens with our card.
Yeah.
So
total disconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, what we'll do then is I think we'll get rolling with what you want to share with us, and we'll attempt to put this up on the screen. So hopefully this will be. This will make sense. So hopefully you guys can see that, and we can still see what's going on here. Just make sure that's gonna. Okay, we can. Can people see this presentation?
Can we make that a live? Can we make that actually in slideshow?
I don't know how to do that. I think if we mess with the magic now, this could go.
Okay, and we don't want that. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So you're going to have to put up with it as we go. Hopefully, you can see the slides there. Okay. So this is. I don't know. Can we scroll? Is there anything below that? No, there's not. Let's go. That's me. That's my family. And it's a bit of an old photo now. This is us in the UK, actually, at Goodrich Castle. Some of the joys we've had have actually been able to take the kids overseas. So this is us very many years ago. Lockie is next to my wife there. He's way taller than I am, and an apprentice mechanic. Anyway, that's me. That's my family. Let's move to the next slide here. Yeah. Obviously, when it comes to teaching our kids about anything, there are many, many, many verses through the Bible that talk to us about the responsibility of us as parents to teach our kids things, and this includes money. And I talk about this a little bit later on, but often it's very easy for us as parents to be saying, "Hey, shouldn't they be teaching this at school?" And I hear this said all the time. But as we'll talk about, that's actually not the way to do it when it comes to money. And as the Bible tells us, really, as parents, we are responsible to teach our kids all these things, which I understand can be a very, very scary thing. So obviously, we've got Proverbs here. Train up your child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. So isn't it our dream as parents that we can teach our kids these things? And actually, of course, mostly their faith, but it relates to all aspects of life. So, Now, I'll give you a bit of a summary of just who I am. And we did that a little bit earlier. I'm a personal finance coach and a financial wellbeing consultant. I was a financial advisor for many, many years. I was a partner in Australia's leading stockbroking financial planning firm. But God called me to walk away from that about 8 years ago. Hardest decision of my life. Obviously we were earning huge amounts of money, way more than I'd ever imagined. In that role, and we were able to give hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and it just seemed like my clients loved me, and I love my clients and so on, but God just made it very, very clear to me that's not where he wanted me to be anymore, and he wanted me to focus on the personal finance coaching, which I was doing on the side anyway. A few years ago I walked away from that to focus on financial coaching. When you think about that gap between the knowledge we need to know, and seeing a financial advisor, people go, well, I don't want to have to pay thousands of dollars to see a financial advisor. I just want some basic financial advice. How do I make good decisions? So that's sort of the space that I sit in. And helped thousands and thousands of people. I also do some business consulting to entrepreneurs and those sorts of things. And in 2018, and this is where it's relevant to today, I was awarded a Winston Churchill Fellowship that allowed me to study financial literacy all over the world. And it was amazing. Just before COVID hit, I had this incredible opportunity. I spent a week with Dave Ramsey and his team in Franklin, Tennessee, which was incredible, but also lots of amazing other people all over the world. So this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm super excited to be sharing this today. So
Good.
That's me.
It's good.
Okay. Have you ever thought to yourself, why don't they teach this stuff in school? Well, the reality is they do teach this stuff in school, but the problem is, and can we go to the next one?
Yeah.
Let's get through it. It has financial. This is me with the guys at ASIC. So ASIC are responsible for putting financial literacy into the school curriculum. But the problem is that financial literacy, for it to be effective, needs to be relevant. It needs to be age appropriate, and not just age appropriate, but appropriate to the experiences of that child. And it simply doesn't work. And when I was on my Churchill Fellowship, if we go to the next slide, it was funny. I went all the way over to Denver to go to a conference over there. And the keynote speaker there was a lady from Australia, a very intelligent lady who'd done a heap of research on all the different all the different financial literacy programs out there and so on. And you can see, I mean, you probably can't quite see that because we haven't got it in full presentation mode, but it looked at 90 of the best well-known financial education programs in the world. And the research came back and said that all these programs accounted for a 0.44% increase in financial knowledge and capability of the kids. So basically saying less than 1% impact these programs had on our kids' ability to understand money and to get it working, which is very, very scary for us parents, particularly because we're trying to make sure that our kids, well, we're probably not proactively doing it, but we want to make sure our kids are financially literate, and we're hoping that schools will do it. Reality is schools won't do it, and that's because financial education is a life skill. It's not an academic subject. So that means that it's taught in the same way we would teach our kids to get dressed, or teach them to drive a car, or teach them to ride a bike. It's through repetition in relevant real life situations when they're the right age to do it. I was speaking to a client here in Canberra just recently, and he sent me an email that he'd received from school that was going to teach their year 8 child how to budget, which sounds fantastic. But unless that child has a regular recurring income and they're responsible for certain expenses, how are they going to apply that? And if they can't apply it, it's going to be completely irrelevant to them. So again, that's where that age appropriate comes in.
I remember learning how to write a check in year 7.
Yes.
Remember a checkbook?
Yeah.
Some of you won't, but anyway, that was fun. But it was pretty relevant.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, how many checkbooks do you have in year 7 and year 8?
Yeah.
So I mean that's the problem. And the problem too is, and this is where it's difficult for the schools, is children are at different levels in terms of some are have part-time jobs earlier in life, some never get a part-time job. There's some parents have wealthy parents, some people don't. And so it's very hard for the school education system to actually do this effectively. And the authorities know that, like the people creating these programs know that. They also know, and in fact, let's just keep going, because I'm going to get ahead of myself. This is a fantastic, and I'm not suggesting you go out and get it, but if you'd like a copy of this, there's about a 34 little booklet that was created by the Money Service in the UK. And it was a Cambridge University study. And the scary thing about this is that it showed through this research that kids have developed their money habits, which will form the foundation of and their behaviors by about the age of 7. which is scary for parents, especially if your kids right now are over the age of 7. So, oh my gosh, what do I do? Are they a lost cause?
Too late.
No, absolutely, it's not. And certainly, and you can see that bottom one there. By the age of 7, basic concepts relating broadly to later financial behaviours have been developed by the age of 7, which is a bit scary. Nice. But there's a whole lot of great research here as to, well, how do we really interact with our kids on this issue? And you can see that the second one down there on the right, they're saying the enjoyment of doing something with a parent, the familiar habit of weekly shopping trips, or the feeling of mastery in participating in adult activities like going to the bank, provides sufficient meaning and motivation for kids to actually follow in those steps. So making it a part of everyday life is actually really important. And that's why it needs to be a parent thing, because you have the opportunity to do it in everyday life, to take them to the bank. Not that we do that. We are going to the bank these days, but it is a good thing to do. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, so this is actually a well-known fact. Every single organization, I met with government authorities, I met with policymakers, I met with people running these sorts of programs. The number one influence on parents when it comes to your child's financial capability is you. You as a parent. Super important that you really understand this. We can't offload this onto parents, the teachers, to teach it. And I would tell you, most teachers struggle with their finances in one way or the other. And when I say most, it is actually a research thing that says teachers actually struggle with this. So when it comes to teaching something that they're already not comfortable with, or where they're struggling with at home, it really impacts their ability to teach it anyway.
No wonder it's only having 0.44% of impact then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So, so mums and dads, it needs to be you. The Bible tells us, and in fact, if I go to the next slide, I think that's it. The Bible tells us repeatedly that we parents are to guide, train up, diligently teach our children in all aspects of life, using the scriptures, using the Bible as our training manual. This includes all things financial. So, and you'd be amazed, and I love talking about this, is there are 2,350 verses on money, wealth, and possessions in the Bible. And
we go through them one by one.
Yeah, that's right. One by one.
No.
But there are, and so everything that we need to know about finance is in the Bible. And the problem is a lot of it is countercultural to what the world's telling us, and especially in Canberra, where we are a very wealthy, very materialistic society. It's unfortunately, it is so countercultural to what the Bible has to say, and yet the financial peace that we want to experience comes from doing things God's way. Yeah. Okay. So these are just some of the Bible verses that we've talked about. I'd encourage you to go back and have a look at them. You can see Titus 2:7, in everything set an example by doing what is good. And again, the example, and this is so important, is that we need to model. We need to model the behaviors, which mums and dads, I know that that's not easy. Please understand, I've been financial coaching for 30 plus years, and I absolutely get that it's not easy. So, but we're going to talk through some very practical strategies in just a moment. Just to put it out there, normally I have a workshop that I run for parents from 5 to 11-year-olds called Talk, Learn, Do, which I brought back from the UK, which is one of the only projects or one of the only programs in the world that actually has empirical evidence that it actually works. So I brought that back from the UK. I've modified it to be Australian. And it's a workshop I'd love to run at Crossroads at some point in the future. But that focuses on that demographic, that 5 to 11-year-olds. And then I have another one for teenagers and young adults. So I'd love to run those workshops live at a later date. Today, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try and use pocket money as a theme throughout all ages, so that no matter what age your kids are, we'll start with the basics, which will be the younger kids, and then we'll work our way through, and we will talk about the older kids as we get towards the end of that. So it should be relevant to everyone that's on the call, no matter how old your kids are. If you've got questions, as Marcus said before, please ask them as you go. We're happy to have question time at the end. Certainly will do that. Yep. But if you've got questions as we go, Marcus will flick every now and then to the questions thing there, so that we can see if you've got questions and answer them as we go. Yep. Okay. So Here's the thing, and this is the traditional model of financial education is that you teach your kids to give them knowledge, and then they assume that they take on that knowledge, so they learn it, and then they apply it, and they learn how to apply it in real life situations, and then they should just then be financially capable. But this model of education doesn't actually work. What we have found works, and again, there's a whole bunch of research around this, is that as parents, we give our kids knowledge, and the knowledge is both through practical examples, through modeling it, and so on, just talking through it with them when we're doing things. That is really important. Why are we making a decision? Why are we saying no? Why are we saying yes? Why are we buying this car as opposed to that car? When you're at the shops looking at, is this the best per 100 grams value for something? Talking through that and then allowing them to practically apply that in a real life situation. I remember I took a photo of this because when we were in Ireland a couple of years ago, I remember we were all craving some ice cream with chocolate sauce. And so we were going to melt down this chocolate and then we were going to put it all over the ice cream, which now sounds a bit decadent, but we absolutely love that in our family. And, so I had all the kids, and I got this photo of the 3 kids looking at all the different types of chocolate along that aisle and figuring out which was going to be the best value. And then, of course, we overlay that. Well, is that a rubbish quality brand? So we perhaps eliminate that one. But having the kids do the comparison of per 100 gram, which is the cheapest here. Little things like that can make a big, big impact. And if we can do it in real life situations, that is the most powerful way to teach our kids about anything. So it really just comes down to modeling and sharing and talking to them about it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through and have a look at pocket money, using pocket money to help our kids learn and apply God's financial principles to their lives. So understand as we go through that it's not, and Marcus and I were just discussing this, it's not all just about saving for the sake of saving, but it is about helping them make wise decisions, so starting with things that are relevant to them. Okay, so there are going to be 11 lessons. Now, I've got a book. I've talked to Marcus about this that I've been writing for quite a while now, only because I keep putting it on the sidelines. But the 20 things parents need to know about pocket money. And I think Lil, I think I saw you on the call here. I think I mentioned this to Lil probably about 5 years ago, and she said, "Oh, that'd be a great idea." And I still haven't got it finished. But I am up to 17 of the 20 now, so hopefully it'll be finished soon. So what we've got here now is the 11 of the lessons. So the first one is, and this is so important, and I'm going to go through these each in detail. Pocket money is a tool. Okay, this is really important. It's a tool. Then we're going to look at, well, what age do I start giving my kids pocket money? How much pocket money should I give them? How do I pay it and how often? And then should I attach chores to the giving of pocket money? So we're going to look at those. Can we go to the next one?
Yeah, you're asking all the right questions. This is good.
Yeah. Well, these are the ones I get asked all the time. So I thought, right, I need to answer these. Give, save, spend. So this is the rhythm that I think it's really healthy to get our kids into. What about extra jobs? Do we pay them to do extra jobs? I don't know why I've got a question mark on some and not others. 4 key lessons that we must teach our kids about money. And when I say lessons, it's not just a practical in the head. It's actually an emotional, behavioral experience that we need to give our kids. So I'll talk through those. What age should pocket money stop? This is really important. And then transitioning our kids to financial independence there. And then the last one, and I won't come back to this one, but number 11 is let them make dumb mistakes and don't bail them out. This is a mistake parents make all the time. But this is super, super important that we're quite happy to let them make mistakes and then and not bail them out so they can learn from them. Okay. All right. Lesson number 1. Now, so I'm just checking that it is only one slide on this. This is so important, mums and dads. If you think about what is the point of pocket money, okay, what is the point of pocket money? Our kids don't need it. We're giving them a roof over their heads. We're giving them, we're feeding them. And that's right. We're feeding them. We are paying for them to do fun things. We're paying for their schooling. They all go dressed and all that sort of thing. Our kids do not need pocket money. Okay. And you've got to really understand this. They do not need pocket money. They do not deserve pocket money. Now, they might be beautiful kids. I'm sure they are beautiful kids, but they don't deserve pocket money. And they're certainly not entitled to it, which I think if we go about things the wrong way, they could easily think that. Okay, so this is so important that you get this. The reason we give our kids pocket money is to use it to teach them money skills. That is why we give them pocket money. It's the only reason why we give them pocket money. So I really want you to think about this. If you're already giving your kids pocket money, it's hard, but we need to come back and go, okay, why? And so if you're not teaching your kids any lessons through that money, then you're basically raising them. It's going to very quickly lead to an entitled mentality that I just deserve it. Okay.
And just because I got given pocket money,
Yep.
is therefore we just do it. Like it's almost like a family
Yeah.
cultural thing.
Yeah.
We never actually think about it. But this is helpful. Go back to first principles.
Yeah.
This is a tool. This has actually got to
Absolutely right. And I know it's hard if we've just been given it, but understand that you should only ever give money as a tool, or otherwise you're sending your kids completely the wrong message. Okay, life isn't just about getting handouts.
Yeah.
Okay, the second thing is, what age do we start giving our kids pocket money? Now, this is really important. And again, this is probably the most common question I get. And typically around the age of 5. Now, the reason we have the age of 5 is all sorts of reasons. They're starting to go to school. They're learning about numbers. And so it's a good hand in hand, money and numbers. It's good hand in hand so that they can start to understand what we're doing. They can start to understand, like, not value of money, but they can understand the differences between numbers and so on. Also, they have, because they're starting to go to school, they're getting an awareness of stuff. That friend over there has got that Tonka truck, or that Cabbage Patch Kid. I'm aging myself here a bit now, but you know what I mean? They have those stuff, and I would like that stuff. So they start to get an awareness of stuff and what they have and haven't got. And therefore that creates in them a sort of, oh, well, I'd like to have that. Now, of course, as parents, we need to be tempering that by telling them that it's, life's not all about stuff. But we also need to give them an opportunity to be able to save for those sorts of things. And so having pocket money gives them that opportunity. It also gives us a learning opportunity to help them practice delayed gratification and sort of working towards it. The other thing, as I pointed out before, is that for many of our kids, their money habits are established by about the age of 7. And so this is more from what they've seen in the environment around them. And when I get to the 4 lessons we need to teach our kids, I'm going to cover this in more detail. Well, what are those 4 lessons? But they relate very much to attaching an emotion to the positive behaviors, which we want to be able to do. We want to be able to do by ideally age 7. How much pocket should I give my kids? Now, this is of course, how long's a piece of string. It can be different for everyone. The amount, now this is really important. The amount is not as important as the lessons. Yeah. So again, don't think that you need to be giving them large sums of money. As long as you can be teaching them lessons with the money that you give them, then that's going to be a really key thing in this process. I haven't seen many questions there yet.
You're answering them all. Already.
I'm answering them all.
Yeah,
okay.
They're waiting. They're waiting till the end, I think.
All right. Well, that's fine.
So I've got some, but I'll wait.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So firstly, the amount is not as important as the lesson. The second thing is start with the end in mind. Now, you can see down the bottom there, I've got what we did with our kids. So at age 5, we started giving our kids $2 in pocket money. And then each year after that, we increased that by $1. And so by age 15, they were receiving $12 a week. Now, the thing you've got to consider with this is, okay, if you've got 3 kids, if you've got 4 kids, it actually starts to add up. By the time the kids get to, $12 a week, that's about $48, $50 a month. And if you've got that across 2 or 3 kids, they won't all be the same age, but, all of a sudden you're looking at, $100, $150, it could be, depending on how many kids you've got a month. So you've got to think about, what's this going to look like? So that comes down to not more than you can afford either. But the other thing too is think about, is this amount, it might look like a small amount to start with, but if by the time you're a teenager, if you've increasing it by X amount per year, and by the time your teenager, is 15, you're giving them $50 a week because of the strategy you've set up, then that's not a good thing. So what you've got to come back and think is, okay, is this going to be a good amount, not just now, but is it going to be a good amount as they work their way through their teen years and up until when will we stop it? So make sure that you start with the end in mind. It might look small now, but is it going to be small when it's older? Make sure that you can afford it, and think about what it's going to be like when they're a little bit older. You should increase it with age because you want to be giving them more responsibility as they get older and helping them make bigger decisions. So the amount should increase. The other thing too is make sure that whatever you do now is sustainable for, like, you want to be fair with all your kids. So it should be the same across all your kids. So make sure that is, you work that through so that, yes, what I'm doing for one child, I'm going to be able to do for all of them. So very important. And as I said, down the bottom there again, your kids don't need anything. They don't need anything. They're not entitled to it. It's not a right. So you need to make sure you're giving them what you can give them so that it can be a tool to teach them about money. If you're not going to teach them anything, you are better off not giving to them at all. Which I know sounds really harsh, but you look at how many entitled kids there are out there these days. And this is where part of that entitlement comes from.
Okay. I started with 20 cents.
Right.
Hey, my pocket made 20 cents, right. But my brother was only getting 5. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah. They preferred you, did they?
No.
Okay. So this is there's a really good little app. Now I did some investigations on this a couple of years ago, but haven't followed it up, and I really mean to as part of this teaching that I want to do in this area. But there's a good little app or process called Spriggy, which is actually helping you pay your kids via a card that can actually be used. Like, you can pay your kids pocket money into this card. And they've done a whole bunch of research into, well, how much does your average Aussie kid get paid pocket money per week? So this is actually a summary for you of the average. You can see at age 6, it's interesting. All the way through, girls get paid more, almost all the way through, girls get paid more than boys.
I think I know why.
You'll get yourself into trouble there.
Anyway.
Yeah, but you can see there, like at age 6, $5.85 and $5.50. Age 7, $5. But you can see by the time we get through to age 14, it's $11. Approximately what kids are being paid. So, which is not far off what I was suggesting. I do think starting with smaller amounts when they're younger is a good thing, because really, again, they really don't need anything at the age of 5. As long as you can teach them lessons with what you've given them, I still think $2 is not a bad thing, because what is it that they need? As they get older, and the comparisons with their friends and there's things they want to do with their friends, then I think it should get increased more. And you never want to put your child in a situation where they're the poor kid and they don't have anything, because it does affect their confidence and those sort of things. But it starts smaller and then build up. So with my kids, as I said, we started at $2 at the age of 5, but by the time we got to 15, it was about $12, which is where they're up there. Yeah. Okay, how to pay and how often. Now, parents, I know you're not going to like this, but while we still have it, I would strongly encourage you that from the ages of 5 to 10, you pay your kids pocket money with cash. This is really important because it's going to help them from mentally achieve a number of things. I mean, firstly, kids are visual and tactile learners. Kids love to see things. They love, like, if you've got and we'll talk about jars in a minute, building up money in their jars, they can see it accumulating, and that excites them. If you're just pointing at a number in a bank account, it's nowhere near the same effect for the kids. The other thing too is having them handle it and understand the differences between the values of money and so on is really important. So kids are visual learners and tactile learners. So what I would suggest that you do is you actually go to the bank, if you can do this, and ask them for a whole bunch of 20-cent pieces and 50-cent pieces and those sort of things, and just have a stash of money sitting somewhere so that you don't have to be rummaging around. I mean, we used to have a money pot that had all the change in it. These days, I hardly ever spend cash, and I'm sure you're the same. So set yourself up for the kids to do that. Kids are visual, tactile learners. Having real cash is very powerful. Also, a tangible reward for work. So we're going to talk a little bit more about jobs and chores and those sort of things in a minute. But with 5 to 10-year-olds, it's so important that they get immediate reward for their work. So we are going to tie pocket money to doing chores, but it's really important that the child sees that I do the chore, I get the money. Because this is the working world. That I want them to understand, and you want them to understand, that money comes from work. We don't just get given money. Money comes from work. And this is what the Bible tells us all the way through, is that money is, those that work hard will reap the reward for that. And so we want to be tying that to their psyche in terms of how money comes into their lives. Money comes into their lives through work. So by paying them immediately, they can see that tangible response for, I've cleaned my room, or I've washed the dishes, or washed the dog, or whatever it is, and I've been paid for it. Yep. Also, they can see it accumulating. So again, we'll talk about the jars in just a moment, but actually having money where they can see each month they're putting money into these jars, they can see that money accumulating, and that helps them to feel like they're achieving something, which is, again, starting to create a positive mindset to saving. And also, easy to exchange money for stuff for them. So making that connection between money buys things, for them to be able to go to the shops and go, well, I've got this much money, can I buy X, Y, Z? And it might be, and this is really important, sometimes like you don't have enough money yet. So we need to go home, save for a couple more weeks, and then we can come back and get it. Really powerful lessons, and that exchange of, I've worked for this money, I can now exchange this money for stuff, starts to connect the dots. Which again in the online world we're missing a bit.
So if chores aren't done, pocket money is not given, or is there a grace area of pocket money? Is a minimum, or how do you play that sort of?
Okay. Can we get to that in a minute?
Of course.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a minute. A great question. We'll get that in a minute. Okay. Once the kids reach about age 11, then it's really important we transfer these money lessons online, and I'll talk about this a little bit later on, because look, all their friends are going to have bank accounts with cards and those sort of things, and they don't want to be the geeky kid that's still paying cash for everything. So we do need to translate. By the time they're moving to adult, we really need to start moving this online. That will give them also greater independence with managing money online and so on, and we're in line with what's happening with their peers. Okay, how often? So this is the second part of this question. How often do we pay it? With our kids, ages 5 to 7, you need to pay it immediately, because we need to connect instant reward with the work. We connect, so that way in their heads, they connect, I do the job, I get the pocket money.
Keep going. I'll look at the questions. It's good. Some questions have come through.
Yeah. I'm just looking at that one about the drugs and the smoking. I haven't got to that yet, so we'll come to that in a minute. Okay. The pay immediately, instant reward. So we need to do that, and we're connecting with work with pay. So that 5 to 7-year-olds, if you pay them a week later, they're not going to make that connection. Ages 8 to 10, we want to do it the same day. Weekly, but on the same day. So we want a rhythm. And again, what we're trying to do is replicate what happens with work. With work, we get, when our employers pay us, typically they're going to pay us on a set day and a set rhythm. So we want to do the same with the pocket money, but we need to make sure that the chores are completed. So this is really important. The pay needs to be attached to the chores being completed.
Yeah. Now,
they can't look. I do tend to be a black and white person. We want to make sure that that the jobs are getting done. But if there is some reason why they couldn't or they can't, then we need to have some grace in there. You can't be black and white, but you as a parent, you can't be soft on it either. Otherwise, you completely undermine the process. If we go to work and we don't do our job, especially, or if we don't turn up for work, then we don't get paid and we'll probably get sacked. So it's important we start to help the kids understand money comes from work, and you need to turn up and you need to do the job well.
Question here about equality between the kids. Some kids might be more talented than others. Might have capacity to do more or do things better. And how do you manage that amongst kids? So it's different from one kid's got a better attitude than the other.
Yeah. Okay.
But this is more, I suppose, ability. There's a wisdom call there, isn't there? So.
There is 100%. And what you've got to be really careful of is, I had a question just recently from someone where they said that one child with the pocket money went out to work and was really motivated to get a job and went out, got a job, and was earning all this money. And the parents said, well, we're going to stop paying you pocket money.
Yeah.
Other child sitting at home, not doing anything, getting paid pocket money, couldn't be bothered to get a job. And it was just unfair.
Yeah.
Like it's blatantly unfair. And so it's really important that as you go through this, you've got to think about it from a fairness perspective. Now, it might be that if you have a child that has particular talents and are particularly good at different things, like my Holly is starting to be a vet. She's always loved animals. So for her, like one of her jobs was always looking after the pets. Making sure that the dog was fed every day, making sure the rabbits, they were her rabbits, but, making sure they were fed and looked after and so on. So it is okay to play to the kids' strengths and weaknesses to decide which chores they get given. But it is important that you are as fair as you possibly can. Like, so important that you are fair in this equation.
That's good. Second question from Phil is just about the possible correlation with the pocket money level and whether our kids get attracted or drawn into drugs.
Yeah.
Like $20 a week in the 1990s pocket money, that sounds like a lot of pocket money, actually. So that's probably part of the issue. You don't want to have your kids having money that they could blow on things that aren't going to be wise. So.
No. And one of I don't know if I've actually got it in here because I had to restrict 20 questions down to 11. But one of the things we get asked to is, well, do you put restrictions on what they can spend their money on? And I would say absolutely. To a degree, yes, you should, because it should be whatever they spend on should be in line with family values and so on. So you need to talk to them about it. Like spending loads of it on just rubbish, food and that sort of thing. It's like, some of it okay, but there's got to be a balance there. But certainly too much pocket money, you're absolutely right. There is a correlation between giving your kids too much money, and whether it's pocket money or just giving your kids money for whatever reason, is very much correlated to the kids spending it on all the wrong stuff. So this is where not giving them too much, or remembering that it's a tool to teach lessons and not just whatever. Coming back to this, same day with the kids, 8 to 10, it should be on a cycle. So typically weekly, but make sure the chores are attached. And then as the kids get older, age 8 to 11, then this is when you start giving it to them online. And it could be weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. And I would say stick to one of those. Again, this is trying to get them into the cycle of this will happen with work. And it also then comes with a higher level of managing it. But also make sure that you don't let the chores slip. It's very easy at this age because it's all online now, not to check. But you don't do that because, again, it's setting them up with the wrong expectations for, one, entitlement mentality, but also to work ethic. We want to make sure the work ethic's there. Okay. Should I attach pocket money to chores? 100% yes. Okay. We want our kids to know you do not get money for nothing unless it's grandma giving you.
You are black and white. You are black and white.
That's right. 100%. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No handouts. Okay. We do not give our kids handouts. Now, I'll often, and I'm going to go get down to the bottom one here first, because often people will say, well, hang on. If I'm paying my kids for the chores, shouldn't they just be doing chores as part of being a family? Yes. 100% yes again. So there are certain chores, and there's no right or wrong here, but what you want to have sit down and think about is, well, what are all the jobs my kids could do? Obviously, they need to be age appropriate. What are the kids, and which ones are just expected of them because they're part of this family? And there's no pay for that. You're just expected to do that. That might be setting the table. That might be, cleaning the room every week. Whatever it might be, there are some chores these kids just have to do because you are part of this family. But then there are other chores that you pay them for. So in our household, for instance, chores like setting the table, unpacking the dishwasher. There's a few of those sorts of things that kids are just expected to do. And it's been a few years now since my kids were that age, but we're just expected to do. So let me just clarify that to start with. Okay. The other thing too is, we want to teach them that money comes through work. And you'll probably hear me say this a lot. Money comes from work. If we don't teach them this, then they get this entitlement mentality. And there are also those kids that don't want to get part-time jobs and don't want to work hard when they get older. And unfortunately, there is a whole generation of kids out there at the moment that seem to be, with the odd exceptions, that just seem to be reluctant to actually do the work that's required, or they want to get paid a lot of money for it.
The government should just give me money.
Yes.
As well. It
Yeah.
goes, it doesn't as well.
100%.
So,
yeah. Exactly right. And I'm running into people regularly now who just have no appreciation of the value of money, and just expect people to give them money. And I just, that's not the way the world works. And it's certainly not what the Bible says. And if you read through Proverbs, there is just verse after verse after verse after verse. And you can see this one down here, Proverbs 14:23, that says, all hard work brings profit, but mere talk only leads to poverty. So important that we get this right. No chores, no money. Each chore should have a value. And we will talk about this a bit more, but each chore should have a value. And I've got a little chart that comes up next. So let's go to that. Okay, so having something like this is fantastic.
Cool.
Which is where you can see you've got the jobs down on the left-hand side there. You've got the days of the week, how much they get paid for each job. If they haven't done it, so if they've done some of their jobs, they get paid. If they haven't done some of their jobs, they don't get paid. And that determines what they actually get.
Yep.
Something like this is really easy to find these sorts of charts out there. And having charts, again, kids are visual. Having these sorts of charts is really, really helpful. So really encourage you to sort of think about that. Okay. This is so important. This is the rhythm that I've taught all of my clients, and I teach all of my, we use with our kids. And that was 10% giving. So you might say 10% tithing. I generally say 10% giving. 10% goes towards long-term savings, and 80% can be spent in line with family values. And they should have a separate jar for each. And this is, again, when we pay them physical money, they can be popping the money in the jars, and they can see that money building up in there. Now, this is really, really important. Now, the visual side of this is super important, but I'll give you a couple of quick stories here. Is that with the giving one, trying to word this in the right way. Giving people, I know that we all love being around people that are givers. And I'm not just talking about physical givers, like money givers. I'm talking about people that give of their time, that give of their energy, that give of their care and their concern and their empathy, and that people that are genuinely there to invest in the lives of others in whatever way. They're attractive people. They're people that we like to employ. They're people that we like to spend time with. They're people that we like to sort of hang around with, if that makes sense. And so we want to encourage our kids, not just from the pure perspective of saving money, giving money, but just from these are the kinds of people that if we can nurture our kids to be givers, then you're going to find that they're just much more happier and healthier in life, and probably more successful in what they do because they're attractive people. So really encouraging kids to give. Now, with my kids, this is just a guideline, what I've got on the screen here, but with my kids, we had 10% tithe. So that was the first 10% they gave. We had 10%, which was also giving. So this was a different form of giving. We had 20% into savings. And then we had 60% that was actually spending on themselves. And that was just what we taught them from the day. So they've just expected it. That's what happens. And with their giving, back then they were able to take their money to church and put it in the plate. And that was a really powerful, exciting lesson. And they love doing it because, again, it's sharing what my mum and dad do. I'm doing some of it too. And kids love that kind of thing when they're part of a family and part of what the family does. They really understand and get it. But the giving, and this is one of those things we're going to get to a little bit later on in terms of what we get to later on is with giving, we want to create a positive emotion around the joy of giving. We want to be able to teach our kids valuable, like that joy that comes from being able to give into the life of someone else. So with our kids, when they were young, they saved up all year in their giving jar. And then at the end of the year, we would take them to the reject shop or the Woolworths or the Target, and they would buy stuff for Operation Christmas Child, which I think I've got a slide there on that. I don't know what to do. Do I have a slide there on that? I can't remember. So Operation Christmas Child, which was a shoebox that you put something in there to wear, something to draw with, something to wash yourself with, something to play with, and so on. And they used to love it. And our kids had so much joy in filling up, going and doing that shopping, filling up those Operation Christmas Child box. And then at church, we would take it to church and we'd pop it out front with everyone else's.
Did you give them the rationale for why those percentages were there, or was it just modeled so it sort of became habitual?
Well, the tithing is something that and again, with the tithing, it was like a biblical principle. Now, I'm got softer on this as I've got older in terms of, because I really believe that giving is very much a heart thing. But I think we can help get our kids get the right heart posture with this by doing it from a very early age. And so we did pop enough money. So they're putting money aside so they could do these boxes, shoe boxes, and that actually gave them a great deal of joy. With church, we said, look, we want to give God gives us everything. And so it was always that lesson, God gives us everything. And so we just want to show him how thankful we are and how to acknowledge his provision of everything, and by giving him that 10%. And so we just told our kids that over and over again, it's about our heart and our joy and our thankfulness. And that's what the tithe was. The giving was then, it just created such a joy in our kids. And I will tell you that, just to give you a really quick story here, my oldest daughter, when she was at the age of buying her first car, and all our kids had to buy their own car, age of buying her own car, she'd saved up all this money so hard. And I remember when we had that big hailstorm a few years ago, she'd hoped that as a result of that, she might be able to buy a car cheaper.
Get a bargain.
And so we went to those auctions with all the cars, and they all went for stupidly expensive prices. And she was so upset that she couldn't get a car. And I budget with all of my kids. So I've set them up with budgets since they've got their first part-time jobs. And I remember going through her budget with her one time and said, why did your savings drop? Where did that money go? And she said, Dad, she said, after not being able to buy a car, I thought, well, maybe God's telling me that I shouldn't put so much focus on the car, and just trust that he'll provide for a car for me at the right time. She said, so there's $3,000, which was half her savings. $3,000, she said, I gave that to, she was, at the time, she was working for Scripture Union, just as their communications, just writing for them while she was at uni. And she said, I gave it at the Scripture Union fundraising event. And that was half her savings. And but she was so joyful about it. And she said, you know what, Dad? And this was a conversation we'd had like a couple of months after. She'd not told anyone that she'd done that. And then, but literally not long after that, a little car came up that was someone at the French embassy was selling. And she got this beautiful little car, Nessie the Nissan, for a bargain price, perfect car for her, at $3,000, which was half the price she was thinking about paying originally. And so, and she was it was so beautiful to see that, because it has had such a big impact on her life. And our daughter Holly has had similar experiences as well. And I think it all stems from the fact that they put money aside for giving, and they just get joy from it.
And there's something about this principle that you it's not that you have to give.
No,
it's actually we get to give.
Yes,
that's the that's the privilege.
Yes.
And so, which is, I suppose, the difference between having a tithe mentality, you must give. But the giving of 10% or more. It's because, you know what, we get to do this. We get privilege. So,
And I could talk about the giving side of things forever. And as you know, I'm passionate about giving and tithing and whatnot. And but not from a legalistic perspective. And as I get older, I'm realizing it's more about the heart than anything. So, but I would set your kids up with jars. Please set your kids up with jars. Okay. What about extra jobs? Yes, absolutely. Give your kids the opportunity to have extra jobs and put a price on those extra jobs. One of the big mistakes we make is that, well-meaning grandma comes around and says, oh, well, I'd like Lockie, in my instance, Lockie to clean the car for me, and I'll pay him, $30 or $40 to clean the car. It's like, no, that job, he's an apprentice mechanic at the moment. I think he earns about $12 an hour or $14 an hour. You are not going to pay him ridiculous sums of money to wash the car. And so it's really important that it's age appropriate, and it's task appropriate too. It's a very menial job. Now, if if you're asking Lockie to reprogram your computer for you, well, maybe, you can think about a higher price. But it's so important that the tasks the kids are doing are age appropriate and that you pay them. And think about, like, we think about Lockie, first year apprentice mechanic, earning something like $13 an hour. Think about that in terms of, if the job's going to take your child half an hour to do, then you certainly shouldn't even, it's manual task, shouldn't be paying them more than about $6, $7 to do it. So just make sure that it's age appropriate. Really powerful. Your kids will get to an age where they want to buy things, and that is the time where you go, great. What we want to do now is set you up with a savings chart, a savings, and I'll talk about that again in a minute. We want to set them up for savings. So this is where getting them motivated to do jobs. They do the job, they work hard. Make sure you've got very clear outcomes you expect them to have, like a half-finished job slap dash. No. That doesn't cut it. You have to, here's what I expect. By the time you've done this job, I want all the rocks in this garden removed. Make it very, very clear for them. And that's actually a job I have for my kids. No, well, when we were, we had a Mr. Fluffy house, and we needed to get valuers out to have a look at it. So we were tidying up the house so we get the best possible value for our Mr. Fluffy house. And so one of the jobs was we had all these rocks inside. I said, okay, kids, you're going to get like 5 cents for every rock, or 2 cents for every rock, or something like that. But, make sure the jobs are appropriate. It's really useful when they have a savings goal. Job must have clear outcomes, and it must be an age-appropriate task and age-appropriate pay. Okay, lesson 8, 4 key principles. All right, these are really important. And if we can teach our kids this by the age of 7 or 8, we're well on the way to helping our kids understand how money really works. Number 1 is money comes from work. So we've talked about that all the way through. This is why we connect chores with pocket money. Money comes from work. Number 2 is that money can only be spent once. And this is really important that we teach our kids this, and often we need to teach them the hard way with that. And I think, actually, if we can go to the next slide. Okay. Money can only be spent once. Rachel Cruz, who is Dave Ramsey's daughter, she's got a great book on money. And she talks about the fact that they went to this carnival, this fair thing for the day. And she blew all her money on the first carnival event of the day. And it was all gone. And then there were so many other things she could spend her money on. The rest of the day was just like daggers to her heart, because there were so many things that she wanted to do. She wanted to buy that lollipop. She wanted to buy that show bag. She wanted to go on that jumping castle. There were all these things that she now couldn't do. And her dad, being Dave Ramsey, said, tough, bad luck. You've made the mistake. And she said she'll never, ever forget that. So it is really important that our kids learn, and we give them the opportunity to blow their money on something stupid and then regret it later, so that they learn that maybe I need to be more careful with my money.
Because perhaps we've all done it too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah. And I will say, and everything that I say to you, please understand, and I always say this to my clients, is it is never, ever my role to judge anyone or to be critical of anyone, because I've been there, done that. And I also know that everyone is in a completely different situation. So I'm just giving you, what's the ideal advice? Okay, next one, delayed gratification. This is really important, and you will have plenty of opportunities through life to help your kids with this. Is they want something, and the temptation is to give them the money to do it. Please don't do that. And this is hard. I always remember, I was so proud of her. I was at Bunnings with my daughter Holly, and she was trying to put mosquito netting around her rabbit's cage so that they didn't get myxomatosis or calicivirus and those sort of things. And she got to Bunnings, and she was sitting working out how much money she had in her Pets jar and those sort of things. And she realized she couldn't afford it. And I nearly just said, because I was so proud of her for working it all, I nearly said to her, I'll just pay for the rest. And it was so hard. It was actually like heart-wrenching, because she was doing such a good, it was heart-wrenching to say no. And, but I didn't, and I went away, and we came back, 2 weeks later, she had the money, then she bought it, and she was so excited. And I think I would have robbed her of that joy. I would have robbed her of that sense of gratification and achievement had I jumped in at that point. So it's really hard, mums and dads, but make sure your kids have a savings goal. Use charts. I use charts with my adult clients in terms of helping them pay off their home loan or helping them pay off the credit card or helping them save for the holiday. I use charts with my clients. Use charts to motivate them. It is so helpful. Again, visual, so powerful. And then the last one.
But did the rabbits survive?
The rabbits did
weeks?
survive.
That's
yeah,
good.
they
Okay,
did
good.
survive. They were okay. And then the last one is the joy of giving. And it said to you, if you can give your child experiences of giving, and it doesn't even have to be to something like Operation Christmas Child. It just could be giving something to another child or sharing a toy or something. But allow your children from an early age to get that joy of giving. It is so, so, so important. Now, we've been privileged. We've also been able to take our kids to Cambodia when they were 10, 12, and 14 to visit water and sanitation projects we've been supporting over there. And that was such a powerful experience for them. Gosh, boy, was it in your face. Like, it was a huge cultural shock for all of us. But, to be able to go out there, and I'll share with you very, very quickly. If we've got time, if I share very quickly something else.
We've got half an hour left.
Okay, half an hour left. Okay, let me just quickly. We when we went to Cambodia, we went to this village. This village out in the middle of nowhere. We all got out of this van, like almost threw up on the side of the road because it was the road we'd been on was like just 5K of just bumps. And we got to this place and we were sitting there and we were handing out water and sanitation. Like, it had all been organized already. We were teaching water and sanitation lessons and handing out water filters. And we learned that the well in the middle of the village had actually ran out of water in summer, like because the water table dropped. It was useless. And we met all these beautiful people, and we came away from that and said, well, only a third of the people were given water filters. And because the water tables dropped, they had to ship in this water in this truck once a week. And it just happened to turn up while we were there. And the water in it absolutely reeked. It was like brown and disgusting, and it looked disgusting, smelt disgusting, and that was their drinking water. And as a result of that, something like 1 in 5 of their children died of waterborne diseases, and a lot of people couldn't work consistently, and it just affected the whole socioeconomic, status of the village. And coming out of it, was just heartbroken, going, well, how much would it cost to have a well built that actually everyone could drink from all year round, and to have water filters for everyone? And the people said to us, the first thing was, well, we can't just do that, bureaucracy. And I understand it. So don't get me wrong. I understand that there's ways and means of doing these things. And they said, and we can't just have white people coming into villages and just solving everyone's problems, because then they become dependent. But I said to them, I pushed him anyway. I said, well, how much would it cost for this to actually happen, for a well to be built and for everyone to have water filters in the village? And they said, all right, we'll go away and we'll work it out. And we went home, we got back home, and about 2 weeks afterwards, we got an email from them. Now, I was thinking $15,000, $20,000, which would be reasonable. And they came back and said, $4,300. That's what it would cost to give the entire village fresh water pretty much for life. 1,500 people in this village. And it's not just them, it's generations to come as well. And it would completely transform the social and education, economic impact of the village. And they said, look, we can, in this situation, do that if you want to go ahead. And so the kids were just so excited, having been there, having seen it, having met the people. We gave the $4,000. The kids each put $100 in, and it was just a life-changing experience for them. To know that you can have that kind of impact on people's lives is just huge.
Awesome. And it gives you a bigger dopamine hit than just getting for yourself.
Oh, hugely, hugely.
For
and I think so often we don't actually believe that when Jesus says it's more blessed to give than receive. I don't know that we actually believe it. But, interestingly, if you look at the people that, like wealthy people around the world, those that have money either destroy themselves with it, but then you've got this whole group of people that are realizing that actually the greatest joy in having money is being able to use it to help others. Number 9, what age should the pocket money stop? This is really, really important. Sorry, I know I keep saying that. It's all very important. Set up the expectation really early with your kids that at age 15, 16, pocket money will stop. Okay, that's it. Now, there's a really important reason for this, is that at age 15, 16, they're old enough to work. And this is where we transition them to a part-time job. Now, I meet parents all the time that get very precious about this. And sorry, I know I'm probably going to put some people offside here. Precious about this. They go, well, they've got to study, or they've got their sports, or there's all sorts of reasons why they can't do it. Youth group. Yeah,
don't let them get a job on a Friday night, please.
no, and
Or Sunday.
or Sunday.
Yeah.
And our kids didn't work those days. I mean,
Mm.
every now and then they did, but it's certainly, as a rule, they made it clear to their employers that no, we're not going to work on these days. Now, so important that we help our kids get part-time jobs. Like, so important that we do this for them, because there is so many life skills that are going to be learned through having part-time jobs. And if you look at almost all the super successful people in the life, and again, not that we should be aiming to be super successful, but if you look at entrepreneurs, like I work a lot with entrepreneurs, these guys all had part-time jobs as teenagers. They all got out there, they learned valuable lessons from working for someone else. So as teenagers, we're going to learn the importance of turning up on time. We're going to learn the importance of dressing appropriately. We're going to learn the importance of doing what we're told and following the boss's instructions, and how to get on with teammates. There are so many life skills that come from having a part-time job. And so this is really important. At this age, the expectation is set. And we said to all our kids, at age 15, 16, between that 15 and 16, well, actually 16, the pocket money stopped. Like when you hit age 16, the pocket money stopped. And they all knew that. They all knew they had to have part-time jobs at that point. And so it was not a surprise. They weren't upset about it. From age 5, they knew that. And it's their opportunity to learn very, very valuable skills. And it's not, even if they have to go and get a part-time job, they could also monetize a specific skill they've already got. It might be that they're mowing lawns. My Holly, she did have a part-time job working at a vet practice, but she also bred bunnies, mini lot bunnies, and sold mini lot bunnies. All of the kids at one stage have done things that have used skills to then sell.
When they get the part-time job,
Yeah,
were your kids, they're obviously not financially independent.
No.
Are you still encouraging them with their fund? Do you know how much control then as a parent do you have over what they're doing with their money, and how do you model that well?
Yeah, good question. I'll answer that next.
Good.
Okay, but can I just go here?
Yep.
They're also going to learn the value of money by actually having to work for it.
Yep.
So I think that is super, super important. So stops at 16, part-time job, super important. Okay, now this is
we should have run through the script. This is good.
Okay. The transition to independence. So this is really important. You can see stage 1 of this is we give our kids pocket money, and we look at the source. So we've got stages, source of funds, and then who actually manages those funds. So we can see here, stage 1 of this journey is, this is more for teenagers we're talking now. The parents give them the pocket money. The source of funds, because they're giving the pocket money, both the essential expenses and discretionary expenses are paid for by the parents. Who manages the money? Well, for the essential expenses, so this is parents still managing the essential expenses for the kids and not giving it to them. That's just, but then with the discretionary expenses, with the pocket money, it starts to become the child's responsibility to manage that. Is that making sense so far? Next bit is then part-time jobs. Once our kids get a part-time job, then the parents are still looking after all their essential expenses, look after their healthcare and most of their clothes and obviously food and all those sort of things. But the discretionary expenses, the child should be expected to pay for the discretionary expenses themselves. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. With the who manages it, well, parents still manage the essential expenses, but the child definitely is managing now the discretionary expenses. Yep. The part 2, and this is when they start to take on more responsibility. And this is, I would strongly recommend, and I run lessons on this all the time, but I'm going to get even more regular with it, is teaching your kids how to budget. All of my 3 kids, we set up with basic budgets when they first got their part-time job. And they then started to take responsibility for different aspects of their budget. And I'll talk about this in a minute. Part-time, so if we go part-time job, they take on more responsibility, they have a budget. So now what happens is parents are still paying for their essential expenses. Child is managing their discretionary expenses, and they're also funding that themselves. But also with essential expenses, at this point, you can start to give, the parent can start to pay the child what they would spend on, for instance, their clothes, and the child has to manage that. So the money's still coming from the parent, but the child is actually managing it now. And then their discretionary expenses, they manage that as well. And then obviously then we transition to that point where the child now, everything they're paying for themselves, and they also manage it all for themselves. But we're sort of working our way through by through that process, so that you basically, because they've started a budget when they get the part-time job, it actually then they might only have 4 expenses they're managing at that point. For our kids, it was things like they're now managing their own mobile phone, they're managing their entertainment and their food out with their friends, and they're managing their gifts for their friends. So, there's the things that they're now responsible for. But it becomes easy as they get older to then just add additional expenses to it. So by the time that they're ready to leave home, they're now managing probably 75% of their expenses. And to add a couple more expenses really isn't a big deal.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
That's really helpful.
So if we can go to the next bit here, this is just to go on stage 1, pocket money. Kids could be managing things like, ideally, you've set them up with a budget where they're eating out, their gifts for their friends, entertainment, stuff they want, they pay for from their pocket money. Now, they don't necessarily have to have a budget at this point, but they're the things they should be using their pocket money for.
Yep.
If we have a look at the next thing, once they've got a part-time job, then what happens then is giving. Now, obviously, with the pocket money before, they're giving bits there, but now they're starting to give from what they earn. They're eating out. All the gifts become their responsibility. Entertainment becomes their responsibility. Stuff they want. Ideally, they start to take responsibility for their mobile phone. And super important here, mums and dads, your child should be responsible for all their car-related expenses.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I mean, it's about $250 to $300 a month. They need to be responsible. This is I won't talk about this in too much detail because we're running out of time. I'm super, super passionate about kids should buy their own cars. There's a whole lot of research on why that should happen. Kids, this is going to be really quick. Actually, let's keep going. Kids should buy their own cars, but we'll come back to that. Stage 3, as I said, this is when they also start to take responsibility for their clothes. And you might actually be paying them their clothes money. Like we're still paying Holly, who's at university full-time, her clothes money, but she actually manages in her budget. So she manages, and we pay for her health, and she manages that and so on, because she's not earning all year round. Sports or hobbies, activities, etc. Stage 4 then is they're fully independent. Now they might still be living at home with you, so you're still paying your mortgage and the utilities and all those sort of things. But I would say they should be paying board. If you've got adult kids living with you, they should be paying board. But really, they should be responsible for their own expenses. Next one: 4 reasons why it needs to be you, mum and dad. Firstly, the Bible tells us that we should be teaching our kids these things. Secondly, money skills are a life skill, not an academic subject. Yep. Third, you've made all the mistakes. So don't think that you need to be someone that's out there that has all the answers. That's not who you need to be. If you've ever seen, there's that movie that's got Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks called the one where he's a con artist. He's a con artist, and I can't remember. Anyway, he's a con artist, and Leonardo DiCaprio, by the age of 20, he's impersonated a pilot, a doctor, a lawyer. Catch Me If You Can. That's it. And I remember when Tom Hanks actually caught him, he said, "How on earth did you teach law to university students?" And he said, "All I ever did was I read one chapter ahead in the textbook." And I think that's, as parents, that's all we need to be. We just need to be one chapter ahead of our kids and teaching them what we've made from the mistakes we've made. And then the last thing is your kids are already watching. So that's why I've got the picture there of the monster from Monsters, Inc. She was always watching Mike Wazowski, or whatever his name is. Yep. They're already watching.
She's good.
Okay. Now, we're going to go on to questions now. I will say, in a couple of weeks' time, I think it was April 1st, I'm running a workshop for parents. So this is all about how do we practically manage our finances as parents, or as not even as parents. This is going to be open to anyone. But if going through this, you're going, gosh, I just don't know enough about how to manage my finances, especially in this uncertain world, from a Christian perspective, then this workshop, I'm going to take you through. On the right-hand side, I've got a roadmap based on biblical principles that helps us with our decision-making as parents or as adults, how we make financial decisions with confidence, wise financial decisions, how to think about and approach giving, and I love the opportunity to talk about giving because I do it from a perspective of a financial coach and not as a pastor. I've worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of clients over time. Thousands and thousands of times over time. What are you doing there? Okay, thousands. Kelly just came in. Thousands of times. And so I've seen the power of giving in people's lives, and so I love to sit down with people and help them get their finances in line with biblical principles, but it just brings so much more peace to people's lives. So make sure you come along to this presentation. It's not going to be, it's not if it's not just don't come along just because I'm struggling. Come along to it because you want to learn some valuable skills and about how the Bible teaches us to manage our finances so that we have financial peace.
And I'll encourage parents. I mean, it might be difficult for both parents to be there, but even if one is able to be there, it encourages us because as we started with this whole thing, our kid, we are already modeling something to our kids.
Yeah.
And so are we actually modeling the grace of the gospel that informs the way we're spending, it's just so key. Because of course the big fear for me is we just, we don't want to grow up these little materialists.
No.
No.
It's so hard.
This is they've got to be financially literate, but we obviously want gospel-shaped convictions to be seen in us. So our kids know that we are what we're spending, and I mean I don't necessarily tell the kids exactly how much we are giving, but they're aware that it's our great joy to give to the things of the gospel, to give to energize and help others. So big lesson. So
absolutely.
All right.
And then the last thing is, mums and dads, if you're on this call, I have a survey that I started about 1.5 years ago. It's actually to help me with my research. I want to aim for 1,000 parents to fill this in. It takes literally 5 or 10 minutes. My goal is to create some research here that I can share around the world. I've been invited to conferences and all sorts of things, but I want to get up to 1,000 parents' responses to this so that it's got some validity to it. I'm up to 122. If you can, I've asked Marcus if I can email you all the link for that. If you could fill that survey in, and if you could share that with any parents and what I will do in thanks to that is when I have got this Pocket Money book finished, I will send you a PDF of the Pocket Money book. I'm also planning on doing like 5-minute YouTube videos on each of the 20 key points. I'll give you access to all of that. I can't promise you when that'll be, but if you are happy to fill this and share it with as many parents as you can, that would be really, really helpful.
So you guys, you all registered through Try Booking, so we have your email, so we can send that out with a link to get that.
Yeah, cheers,
get that
done.
That's fantastic.
All right.
Well, I think we'll stop sharing and then we'll go to see if there's any questions at this point. So let me just see if I can get this right. Okay. Oh, look. All right. So let's just think. Have a look through some of the questions that are here. Just while I look, can you answer this question? When you meet with you meet with a lot of non-Christian clients, obviously.
Yeah.
And how does this issue of pocket money and everything? How does that work for them? You run through the same sort of schedule and the same sort of thing. So
yeah. Okay. And, as I've said to you before, mate, one of the greatest joys in money is such a personal issue. I get amazing opportunities to share for and pray for my non-Christian clients, pray with my non-Christian clients often actually, as they're facing these issues, and it's a great joy. Yeah.
There's a question about investing.
When?
Where is it? Yes, from Lily and Joseph. Phil, do you incorporate any investing at the early stage in the pocket money rules? What are your thoughts there? Do you have massive secret share portfolios for kids or anything?
I do encourage parents. Like I always say to parents, in terms of finances, get yourself sorted first before you start worrying about your kids. And one of the biggest mistakes we make as parents is thinking that we need to get our kids set up for life, and it's a very big problem in Canberra, a very big misconception in Canberra. Yes, well, firstly, we need to manage our own finances well and to get things set up properly for ourselves. But in terms of teaching them about investing, probably not until they reach about the age of 10. And at the age of 10, then yes. And with my kids, once they had their first part-time jobs, which I think they all got them around 14 or 15, we certainly started the whole talking about investing at that perspective. Organizations like Vanguard, for instance, do have the capacity for you to set up little share portfolios for your kids. And I ran a workshop the other night, actually. Had about 25 or 30 people come along to a workshop I ran on the beginning, how to get started in investing. Because there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and it's actually not nearly as hard as you think. And so I do think as the earliest you can start teaching your kids about these things, the better. And certainly getting your kids set up with a share portfolio, if you can afford it from early in life. And when I say share portfolio, I'm just talking index funds. It's a really powerful thing. 5's probably too young though.
Yeah. Now, question: this tomorrow at church, we're going to be looking at the rich young ruler.
Mm-hmm.
Last week we looked at the rich fool.
Yep.
Who just stored up more stuff in his barns.
Yep.
Now, I was reading a book last night, was critical of Christian stewardship. When we think Christian stewardship, we often think, oh, we just got to be good savers, save every penny you can, as if that is what Christian stewardship is about. And we don't want our kids just to be accruing things for no other purpose than I just want to accrue more things. So how do you warn us as Christians not to jump on the bandwagon with the rest of the world that says, oh, you've got to have this amount, or you've got to, how do we draw these principles in? And as parents, we've got to model this, as well. We're not here to accumulate treasures on earth.
No, we're not. But it's interesting that when you don't have a plan of any kind, you stress about it more.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It becomes more of a focus for you. And also it becomes more of a, I really believe that compound interest is a God-given thing. So if you think about it, you go, okay, well, if I can start from a very early age to teach my kids how to just on the side, investing can just be set up as an automatic pilot thing. Over on the side here, we're just letting this thing do its job. Then it never really needs to be an issue for you. And the earlier you start, the smaller the less you need to invest to get those compound returns. And of course, the Bible does tell us that in the house of the wise, there are choice stores of oils and choice food and oils and those things. So it does tell us to save, but the thing is, it shouldn't be a focus. It shouldn't be a priority. It should just be something that's happening in the background. And that's where I think that if we can with anyone, and this is, don't save for the sake of saving, but we want to try and automate the process as much as possible so that we don't need to worry about it. We don't need to think about it. It's just happening. And then we can clearly see we've got all this other money that we can now give and do whatever whatever God calls us to do with.
Yep. So it's, a plan, there's prudence. There's great opportunity actually that we have to be wise and godly at this stage, and others will richly benefit. Exactly right. Now and in the future. So that's good. All right. Well, I see some other comments there. Thanks, Philip, for the comments that you put in there. But unless there's any other questions that people are keen to quickly ask now, we'll probably just finish up in a couple of moments. Remember that the Christian stewardship thing, as Phil mentioned, is coming up Monday week, so 1st of April. So that'll be in person. So get along to that if you're able. And we'll question. And did you recommend Spriggy? Was that what it was?
Lil, Joe, it's a good little tool. So I won't go into it in great detail, but have a look at it. It's actually a good little tool, especially if your kids are around that sort of 10. It's not a bad time to be starting to have a look at that sort of thing. Because again, remember, we're talking about that transition point. We're talking about that transition point where we use physical money, cash, when they're younger because of the practical, like they can see it and they can touch it and so on. But once you start to get to sort of that 10, 11 years old, you want to actually start helping them transition to, well, how does this actually then relate? And taking them to the bank, I must have missed some out of this presentation somewhere here, but oh no, it's in my book. That's right. I was writing in my book the other day. That you do want to make the connection with them with going to the bank and then showing them the money you just put in the bank now shows up in their bank account, and that's now what's available on the card. And Spriggy actually helps you do that. So it is actually a good tool.
I got a question. What do you do if children are pretty just disinterested? So some kids are just too interested in money, and that's a worry, and you want to model good things. But other kids just perhaps there's not a lot of motivation, or they just I don't want to get a job, or I'm just not, it's not necessarily because they're lazy, but it just isn't there's almost a lack of drive there, which I think spills over into adulthood as well. For a lot of people. So
that's the issue.
How do we capture them in a healthy way rather than sort of saying, well, you don't start saving now, you won't be able to, which is not not a particularly encouraging way to go about it.
Yeah, so. Look, and it's it's a very hard question to answer because every child's different, and as we know today too, that there are a lot of mental health issues and so on, and so we do need to be careful and sensitive. So I'm always very careful in this instance not to be too black and white, but I would say that it is. If you're not gently pushing a child out the door to get a part-time job, then it's going to be so much harder for them when it comes to getting a proper job when they need to be getting a proper job. And so I see it quite often, amongst my kids' friends. There are those that are super motivated, have got out and got jobs and those things. Like Lockie would have quite happily sat at home and done very little. But in fact, actually pushing him out the door to get a job. I remember the first day I took him in to start his job. I've never seen him so nervous, but he really got into it and he blossomed in that workplace. So I do think that we can be very, very, we can be a bit too precious. So unless it's a mental health issue thing, I would be encouraging you to get your child out the door, find a job that suits them. And with my kids, like my Hannah had said, I used to take Hannah and all the kids to the Belconnen and fresh fruit markets every Saturday morning, and we do the fruit and veg shopping. And I remember my Hannah, when she was about 10, saying, when I'm 15, because they all knew they were going to get part-time jobs, when I'm 15, I'd love to work at Ziggy's. And so when we got to 15, actually it was about 14 and 9 months, I think it was, I took her to Ziggy's and I said to I went up to the owner there and I said to the owner, Tony, I said, oh, Tony, my daughter Hannah had she's always wanted to work at Ziggy's ever since she was 10 years old. I bring her every Saturday, and she goes, oh, so where's Hannah? And I said, oh, she's just over there. And she goes, I'll bring her over here. And so I brought Hannah over, and she said, so I hear you wanted to work at Ziggy since you were 10 years old. And Hannah goes, yeah. And so she's right. When would you like to? When would you like to? And so she started working there, and she worked there for 4 or 5 years, all through last few years of school and few years of uni, and loved it. And then Lockie, and then actually she was such a good little worker that Tony used to come up to me and say, so when are the other kids going to start coming to work with us? Lockie ended up working for them for 4 or 5 years as well, but Holly worked with the vets.
So, Phil, thanks so much for doing this. Has been really, really helpful. A few take homes for me is look, the kids are watching, and we are, as parents, the greatest influence upon what our kids are going to do with the little or much money they may have, and so that's an encouragement for us. I think to get this whole area in order ourselves, but also to model our kids what we're doing, because we're modeling something, even if it's unintentional.
Absolutely, yes.
Model all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be stressed out and worried about money, but if we are, we should seek help and actually seek counsel, and again trust what the scriptures are saying. In the end, we're not growing up little materialists who are going to be financially literate. We're growing up who prayerfully men and women who are going to honor Jesus with all of their life, and that includes their finances and their giving, to be a great blessing to others. And I think we need to help each other. And so this sort of cracks open a conversation. I know that Phil around church is more than happy to talk to people about these issues.
Absolutely.
He's already promised you a book if you fill in the survey.
Please,
So do that. But hopefully you found this practical and encouraging. And you've got a bit of data and a few things to take away to think about. But please spend some time praying for your children and yourselves as we trust God with the money that He's given. It's His money anyway, isn't it? It's all His. So, which we'll be hearing about a bit more in this series. So good on you guys for tuning in. This is recorded, by the way, so we'll be able to make it available to others who couldn't make it today. So if I don't know why you need to watch it again. Well, no, you want to watch what Phil presents again. So that we'll make that available as well. But thanks for being part of this. And we're going to pray in a moment after this. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday or whatever else you're doing when you're watching this. So thanks, brother.
Thanks, mate.
Good
Thanks
stuff.
for the opportunity, guys. Please feel free to ask me questions if you see me at church, or to message me. More than happy to answer questions. This is such a joy for me. So thanks for the opportunity.
Good stuff. All right. See you guys.